looking good.
Facebook link.
Poster, I'm telling them. What you said?
অরুণাশিসকে জিজ্ঞেস করছি।
You can sit here.
ফেসবুক লিংক দিয়েছো অরুণাশিস?
Oh, he's taken off the post. Not yet started. 6 o'clock.
ইউটিউব লিংক দিলাম, দেখে নিন।
পাঠিয়ে দিই তাহলে।
लिखित में आ जाए तो उसने शादी का भी भेज।
আরে হ্যালো এভরিওয়ান, একটু গোলমাল করুন সবাই মিলে, হইয়াল্লা করুন, নইলে জানবো কি করে কে ঢুকেছে। আরে অর্পিতা এসছে, থ্যাংক ইউ অর্পিতা। শুনতে পাচ্ছ? ববিতা, সুস্মিতা, ম্যাডাম প্রতিভাজি, হাবি, we are with you and you are with us.
হ্যাঁ শোভেন দা, শুনতে পাচ্ছি।
जी नमस्ते सर।
We may not start in time. Tapunda এসছে, Tapunda। সেন, কেমন আছো? আরে আপনাকে সেই দিন, আপনি যেদিন রেজিস্টার করেছেন সেই দিনই আপনাকে লিঙ্ক পাঠিয়ে দিয়েছে। ইয়েতে যান, মেলে যান, মেলে দিয়ে পাবেন। Many phone calls are coming that we are not getting link. Actually, link has been forwarded as and when he or she registered.
হ্যালো, নমস্কার, আমি পলাশ নাথ। আমি কি মিটিং এ জয়েন করতে পেরেছি?
হ্যাঁ পেরেছেন তো আপনি।
আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে,
আপনাকে দেখতে পাচ্ছেন।
ও ভিডিওটা অন করবো। আচ্ছা আচ্ছা, থ্যাংক ইউ।
আচ্ছা, for everyone's knowledge, you all will be kept in mute from now onwards. আমি সবাইকে মিউট করে রাখবো, and as and when required we will allow to speak.
তোমাকে দেখা যাচ্ছে কিনা জিজ্ঞাসা করে নাও।
Now, this event is been broadcasted through YouTube and Facebook as well. You can, anybody can tune in to the Facebook channel. We have already posted the link in our page. Samanda, can you talk to Mr. Solanki? He's not yet in. Just got an update from Mr. Solanki that he getting some technical issue to log in. He's will be in within 2-3 minutes.
गोखले साहब को नमस्कार। हेलो गोखले साहब, नमस्कार नमस्कार। তোমার সঙ্গে কথা হয়েছে নাকি এর কি বলে সোলাঙ্কি সাহেবের?
হ্যাঁ, ওনার সাথে কথা হয়েছে। সোমেনদা,
হ্যাঁ শুনতে পেয়েছি।
Somenda, we have got Mr. Solanki in already.
Let us wait for a few minutes, okay? I will be requesting everyone to please switch on your video so that Arunashis can take a photograph just for a minute at least. Please switch on your video. Arunashis will be taking a photograph. Thank you so much. Please, Suman Rai. Hello, Madhusudan ji. Namaste, namaste. Mr. Amit Mondal, Mr. Arnab De, তোমরা একটু ভিডিওটা অন করো। অর্পিতা গোস্বামী। সুমিতা ভৌমিক একটু ভিডিওটা অন করুন। অর্পিতা গোস্বামী, মিস্টার গোখলে। অরুণাশিস ফোন করছে। সুমনের কি ব্যাপার? ভিডিওটা অন করো। দাঁড়াও, ও একটা কলে আছে, একটা ফোন করছে। অরুণাশিস, তুমি একটা ছবি তুলে নাও।
ठीक है।
गोखले जी, थोड़ा जरा सा वीडियो ऑन कीजिए। अर्पिता गोस्वामी। তুমি বললে আমি শুরু করব। অরুণাশিস,
We are good to go.
Ready?
Yes.
Thank you. Only 30 participants. Let us wait for at least 5 minutes, okay? Let us start at 6:10. Initially, let us welcome everyone. Okay. By this time, I am going to introduce Mr. Solanki. Many of you have already are known to Mr. Solanki because he has already covered many webinars by this time, and it is a privilege for us that Parivar Bengal could contact him, and he readily agreed. And we are really grateful to him that it is his passion. Mr. Solanki is a financial planning expert who is passionate about helping special needs people and their families in removing 1 minute, please. In removing their anxieties towards special needs financial planning. His aim is to bring in the families a sense of empowerment so that they are able to provide for their loved ones and special needs and to the whole family. That is the mission of Plan Special Needs Mr. Jitendra Solanki has started exclusively for families with special needs. Mr. Jitendra is also the author of the book Financial Planning for Families Having Children with Special Needs. Mr. Jitendra is a SEBI registered investment advisor based at Ghaziabad, Uttar Pradesh, and has earned the much respected professional designation of Certified Financial Planner, CAPCM, and Chartered Trust and Estate Planner. He is a postgraduate from IIT Roorkee and has spent 15 years in financial services industry. Mr. Jitendra is also the founder and director of Special Needs Estate Planner Private Limited, an estate planning firm working exclusively with special needs children, families on will, trust, and other legal aspects. Mr. Solanki, a frequent writer and speaker at public forums, shares his views and wisdom, especially on planning for families with special needs, dependence, through various media groups and TV channels, including ones dedicated to persons with disabilities. Mr. Jitendra has been conducting workshops for the families, making them aware on financial, legal, and other aspects to address while planning on the special needs future. With more than 50 workshops across India, Jitendra has addressed more than 1,000 families until now. And we are joining, we are adding to that 1,000 families. Mr. Jitendra, thank you so much for being with us, and thanks the participants who have already reached here and will be hearing Mr. Solanki within a minute. And I will welcome welcome our President, Mr. Tapan Kaur also. Please, Tapan Kaur, be given the highlight. Mr. Arunashish. তপন দাকে একটু হাইলাইট করো। Mr. Tapan Kaur has been given the honor of co-hosting. We will start. Mr. Solanki may start. Here we have with us our All India Technical Advisor, Madam Ayana Kundu. We have with us our All India Vice President, Madam Chaitali Gami, and many other executive committee members of Parivar Bengal. And thank you so much, other participants also. We are handing over the mic to Mr. Solanki. Please take over, Mr. Solanki.
Thank you, Somenda. Thank you for the lovely introduction, and welcome to all the parents, professionals, and all the people of Parivar Group. So today we are going to discuss a very important element, of life, and that is, answering a question: what after us? And specifically, when we talk about what after us, then we are looking at the framework which can provide continuity of the child affairs even after the parent's lifetime. So, not delaying much, I will you can see my screen.
Yes, Mr. Solanki, we can.
Okay. Right. I am representing Special Need Estate Planners Private Limited today because we are going to talk about trust, and the company I incorporated last year specifically to. It's an organization which focuses exclusively on advising special needs dependent families on estate and succession planning matters. So what exactly we do, I'm going to touch more on this later. But about what is the objective of the session, so to gain an overview of key issues, what are there for consideration. We will understand trust. I'm not going to cover in today's session, but we'll cover more on the special need trust. So understanding what are the roles and responsibilities of various stakeholders when it comes to a private trust. What are the possible options for seamless care of special child post one's lifetime? How the seamless transfer of assets, which will be there for the benefit of the special child, can be done. How the security of assets can be provided, and how does trust ensure steady income stream which can be used for the benefit of special child. So we're going to discuss more on special need trust, or in India, though we are defining it as a special need trust, but it is more of a private trust in India as we define it under Indian Trust Act. So first of all, what are the challenges we have maintaining quality of life for special needs child? So as a parent, we all want that the quality of life we are giving to our child should continue. Equal treatment to siblings. If there is a sibling, then the equal treatment to the siblings should also be given. These are the challenges, especially from the aspect of estate planning. Adequate provision for special needs child care after the parents. So the provision should be there, and the provision should be adequate enough which can ensure the financial care of special needs child, and a proper structure of distribution of inheritance to the child, because what you are accumulating for the child has to be distributed with a proper structure which can take care of the expenses, the financial management, or the financial of the special needs child for his or her lifetime. These are the challenges which we as a parent of a special needs child are facing. Generally, when I say how do you plan for special needs child, and this question does come in most of the time, that how should I go about planning, or when should I start planning? So as soon as you identify about your special needs child, the planning should start right from there. But the planning becomes easier when you can draw a timeline of your child life stages. So like we did dividing the life stages into 5 stages of special child, and the book which I have written, you will find mention of it, because this is the basis on which I have explained how you can do planning. So when you draw it in 5 stages, stage 1 is minority, So what are the issues or what are the action plan you have to take? Diagnosis, early intervention, counseling, therapies, special education, adult living at home, services support, employment, guardianship, residential need, trustees. Stage 3, if the child moves to an external living environment, then child adaptability, residential facilities, financial support, the parent's retirement would come in. First parent death, if there is a will and the probate happens, the probate of the will be there, the trust administration would be there, the trustees will come in after the parent's lifetime, funding of the trust will happen, and second parent death, again the probate, trust administration, trustees, and finally the end of child lifetime. So this is a timeline which represents that what areas you have to address when you are planning for your special needs child, including the formation of a trust or the estate planning aspect. So when you draw this timeline, you can actually plan out much early in life, and you can plan out an action plan and what is coming in the future and how you should plan it today. Now, why estate planning is so important? So we are talking on special need trust, and which is an element of estate planning. But why estate planning is so important? Maximizing inheritance designated to heirs. So inheritance is for your legal heirs. So for spouse, children, so your inheritance is to them. So how do you maximize inheritance which you have designated to them? Review testamentary instrument. Testamentary instrument means we are talking about will. So reviewing will periodically to ensure that you include all the provision, you include all your assets which is there for your family. Beneficiary designations and other documents. So beneficiary designations is there are some assets like you have employee provident fund, today you have life insurance policies where you have beneficiary apart from the nominee. So reviewing those beneficiary designations and any other documents, determining guardianship of children. So who is going to be the guardian after you? So you have to determine guardianship of children, distribute asset to beneficiaries. Who all are the beneficiaries and how do you should distribute your assets? How should your assets to go to each beneficiary? How it should be utilized for the benefit of your special needs child? Now that is an element of estate planning. And manage estate asset. Who's going to manage that estate? So if it's a large estate, who's going to manage that estate? If there are multiple properties, who's going to manage those properties? So these are all objective of estate planning. And for these reasons, you have to do an estate planning. You have to plan it early. You have to plan properly. So what are the estate planning options when you are planning for your special child affairs after within your lifetime and after your lifetime? The first option is distribute assets to sibling or family member who will then care for your special need benefit. Either or gift bequeath asset to special need child directly and let it be managed by the legal guardian. Establish a special need trust, a private trust, or distribute asset to the residential living center if you have opted for benefit of special need child care. Now these are the estate planning options. Which options suits one's requirement will depend on your family situations, and it's wiser to analyze all these options and see what are the issues when you are looking at options. So suppose you want to leave it everything to your child and identify a legal guardian, then you should analyze what are the issues when you are leaving a legacy to be managed by a legal guardian and how he or she is going to manage all the affairs including personal and financial affairs. So these are the 4 options when you are planning for your special need child future, and every option need to be analyzed well to see that it fits into your financial requirement, it fit into your special need child future. Talking about element of estate planning in which the trust is included. The first element is insurance planning, parents, the legal guardian, and the special need dependent. Now we are talking on trust, we are talking on funding of the trust. So the insurance planning has to be there. If the adequate assets are not available today, then how you can provide funding to the trust. I'm going to talk more on this later. But these are the elements of estate planning. investment strategy. So whatever corpus you have accumulated, and whatever corpus is going to be bequeathed to the trust, how the corpus is going to be managed, the growth of that corpus, the capital security of that corpus, the monthly income which would be generated from the corpus, the income tax and the trust laws. Funding special need care. You have to fund your special need child care, the accumulation strategy, the instant funding. If we do not have an adequate assets available today, how we can provide an instant funding after our lifetime? What are the tools from where you can create a corpus which would be funded to the trust, which will manage the financial affairs? And oversight mechanism, the reporting, how the trust is going to report, whom they are going to report, the MIS information system, the investment report that would be generated, and a protector or guardian who is going to oversee all the affairs. Now, these are the elements of estate planning when you are planning for your special need child future, especially when you are planning through a trust. I'll just touch upon a bit on guardianship. So the legal guardianship, there are four types of legal guardianship. So one is the National Trust Act, through which once the child turns 18, then the parents have to seek a legal guardianship. Testamentary guardianship is what you, when you appoint a guardian after your lifetime, and that you do through a will, applies at all ages of your child. So even when the child is minor, you have to consider appointing a guardian who is going to be there after your lifetime. Then there is a Guardian and Ward Act, which applies specifically when the ward is in minority, and there is a trust set up through the lifetime of a settler. The guardian can be set up and it can be a viable option. So these are the guardianship options you have. Now, why I'm mentioning it guardian is because when you are looking at special need trust, we are looking at managing the financial affairs. The trust won't manage the personal affairs of the child. The personal affairs still will have to be managed by the legal guardian, and that's why along with the trust, the legal guardian has to be appointed. So we come to the trust, and we are talking specifically trust for the managing the financial affairs of a special need child for the lifetime. Now in India, generally there are two types of trust. One is a public trust, which you know well, it is known as a charitable trust, where no individual is a beneficiary, but the beneficiary is public at large. But today what we are discussing is a private trust, a private family trust, a trust made for the benefit of a family member. So we are going to talk of private trust. And so when you form a trust, there are four fundamentals of a private trust, or the four fundamental on which a trust structure is based. Now the first one is the author or settler, the person who transferred the property to the trust, or the person who creates the trust. So when you as a parent create the trust, you are an author or you are a settler. Trustees is the person who's going to be responsible for managing the trust. So the trustees would be there who will manage the trust affairs till the lifetime of the trust. Then a beneficiary, the person whose benefit a trust is created. So if your child is the only beneficiary, he is or she is the beneficiary. If you are also a beneficiary, then you are also a beneficiary. So the number of beneficiaries depend how you are creating the structure of the trust. So the beneficiary is a person for whose benefit a trust is created, and the trust property, the property transferred to a trust or held for the benefit of the trust. So these are the fundamentals of a private trust, or it's an arrangement between a settler, an author, the trustees, and the beneficiaries. So author is the person who creates the trust. Trustee are the person who are responsible for managing the trust. Beneficiary is the one who is going to derive the benefit of the trust. And in when a special needs child, so he's or she can be the sole beneficiary. And the property of the trust, the legacy you will leave behind, or you will transfer within your lifetime, or you will leave behind for the trust after your lifetime. Now, what are the benefits of a trust? Why we are talking of trust, to be created? What benefits you derive from it? I'm going to talk about few benefits. There is no restriction on settlers or those who can create the trust. So now you as a parent can create the trust. A grandparents can create the trust, or a legal guardian can also create the trust. So a person who is responsible for managing the affairs can create the trust. So there is no restriction that it has to be created only by the parents. There are no standard terms of the trust. So when I say there are no standard terms of the trust, it means that when you are creating a private trust, you can structure it as per your family requirement. There are some standard terms of the trust with respect to the powers of the trustees or some other elements. But beyond that, what structure you want to give it with regards to the trustees, their powers, the management of the assets, you can create as per your family requirement. And that's why I say there are no standard terms of the trust that it is going to be standard for everybody. For each family, what is your requirement, what is your situation, you can write down the terms of the trust. It's a separate entity from income tax perspective, and also a trust is treated as a association of persons, but because it is a separate entity, so once the assets are transferred to the trust, then and based on the structure of the trust, they become the trust property. A trust does not go through a probate. Now, what is a probate? Generally, we know that a will can go to a court when it is challenged. It goes through the court process, and then the court decide the distribution or the execution of the will. And also there is a probate process. In some states, the probate is mandatory, and in other states it is not. But there can be situations when a will has to go for a probate. Now, when a will goes for a probate, there is a process of court proceedings. Until that process, the proceedings are completed, the will is not executed. Now, generally what happens, so if you have planned everything to the will, unless and until this process is completed, the will is not going to be executed. So what happens to the management of the child affairs? Now, that's where the trust benefits, that once a trust is created, the trust is not going through the probate process. So even if will goes for a probate, the trust continues managing the child affairs. Whoever creates the trust can appoint the initial trustees. So you as a parent, when you are creating the trust, you can identify and you can appoint the initial trustees, that who are going to be the trustees after you. A trust works only for the beneficiary. So largely the trust works only for the objective it is created. So when you create a trust for your special needs child, then the trust will work for the benefit of your child affairs. And most importantly, a trust avoids conflict among family members. Now, why we say that it avoids conflict is generally because when you create a trust, your family members are well aware of that why a trust is created. And so when they know very well that why a trust is created and they agree to it, then the probabilities of conflict between family members would get reduced in comparison to a will. Now, will can easily be challenged. There can be differences, and will generally, when you write a will, it's not necessary that everybody know that you have written a will. But when you are forming a trust and when you are looking at trustees, you would largely be discussing with your family members that why you are creating a trust. And once a trust is created, then as far as challenges goes, challenging a trust is quite difficult. So that's where the trust would avoid or probably reduce probabilities of conflict among family members or outside the family. What are the type of trust which can be created? So there are three types of trust which can be created. Now these are the structures which is available for you based on what kind of framework you want to create. So the structure can be created. The first is revocable trust. Now a revocable trust is which you can revoke anytime once you have created. Now generally when you revoke a trust, or when you have a power to revoke the trust, the asset ownership is not changed. It remains unchanged. So assets are treated as a settler's asset. And income of a trust is also taxed as a settler's income. So, and it won't be trust as a separate income. So, and it converts to irrevocable on settler death if the provision is given. Now, largely, why revocable trust is created when the taxation is as a settlers and when the asset ownership is also unchanged, the asset ownership remains with the settlers. There are certain situations where a revocable trust can be beneficial, like managing multiple assets in multiple states. Though you want to keep the control, but you want to bring it under a defined structure, you can create a revocable trust. Or you want to create a trust, but you are not sure about the future, you want to change the provisions tomorrow easily, then a revocable trust is beneficial. Contrary to this, you have an irrevocable trust. Now, an irrevocable trust, it cannot be revoked. Assets become property of the trust. So once a trust becomes an irrevocable, and once the assets are transferred to the trust, then it becomes property of the trust. The irrevocable trusts are taxed as specific or discretionary based on the structure. So it is not taxed on the settler, but they are taxed either on the beneficiary or on the maximum marginal rate, depending what is the structure. So the taxation treatment is different. Now, this is largely beneficial for special children families where they are looking at protection of the assets and they are looking for the future care of special needs child. Sometimes in business successions for minor children also, these irrevocable trusts are beneficial. The third is the testamentary trust, a trust which you create through will. So you do not want to create a trust today, but you want that till you are there, you're going to manage everything. But when you are not there, at that time you want a trust should be created and the asset should be moved to the trust, then you can create a trust in the will itself. So when the will gets executed, the trust gets formed and the assets get distributed to the trust. So it is created through will, it is formed while execution of the will. Trust rules are written in the will because it's through will where the trust is created, and it is beneficial of protecting minor children's future. So these are the three types of trust structures which can be created. Now, based on what do you want and based on your requirement, how you are looking at, you can look at the structure of the trust you want to create. So you can create a revocable trust. If you are not sure, you might change the terms of the deed, then a revocable trust can be easily revoked and a new deed can be formed. Irrevocable, when you are really sure that you do not want to change the terms and also you do not want anybody else should be allowed to change the terms of the trust, then you create an irrevocable trust. And lastly, when you want that a trust should be created through will, then you create a testamentary trust. So these are the three types of trust you can create. Now, who can be trustees depends on the specific issues in the situation or estate, but largely a family member, a friend, a corporate, a company, fiduciary. There are banks also, there are trustee company also, or a combination of an individual and corporate fiduciary serving together. So there is no too much foundation on who can be a trustee. You can invite a family member, a combination of family member, a corporate, or any other individual. So let's talk about what is the role of a trustee. What does trustee do? Now, a trustee is supposed to make profitable decision for the entity under its authorization. So basically, a trustee is a person. Now, he does not own the asset. He is not party to the asset's benefit. He is there to manage the trust. He has entered into an agreement with the settler that he is going to manage the trust for the benefit of the beneficiary. And that's why trustee, he or she is not supposed to make any profitable decision for the entity under its authorization. It is a legal relationship between the trustee and the party. The role of a trustee, once he accepts it, it's a legal relationship. So anybody you want to appoint a trustee, you have to make them comfortable, you have to make them aware that it's a legal relationship or the legal responsibility you are taking. So, And usually the trustee is not to make any profit for himself using the resources of the trust. So trustee cannot use the resources of the trust for their own benefit. As I said, a trust is an arrangement between a settlor and the trustees and the beneficiaries. There are three parties. It's an arrangement where settlor provides a assets, he set up the terms, the trustee enters into an arrangement that they will manage the trust for the benefit of the beneficiaries. So the trustees are not there to make any profit for themselves, and they cannot use the resources of the trust for their own benefit. Identifying trustees. So how do you identify trustees? Now this is a very important question to be answered. Why? Because when you are looking at a family member to appoint as a trustees, or
Mr. Solanki,
Yeah.
Mr. Solanki, 1 minute, please.
Yeah, please.
Please revert back to the earlier slide. Another thing to all participants, if you have questions, please write in the chat box. Arunashis will follow it up. Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So I was talking about identifying trustees. Now this is an important question, because when in the previous slides I have mentioned that it's a legal responsibility, it's a legal relationship. So whomsoever you are appointing a trustee, one, he has to accept that. Second, because it is for the benefit of a special needs child, so there are some qualities you have to look at when you are appointing somebody as a trustee in your private trust. Now generally, when you are identifying trustees, what are the qualities you can look at? The person knows how to manage fund investment, account, taxation matters. Now I am not saying the person has to be expert in knowing how the investment should be done, how the account to be managed, but as a trustee he should know, or he's supposed to ask the right question, hiring professionals. So he should be knowing that which professional should be hired for all these matters. So he should know how to manage this, knowing managing relationship, sensitive to the child, to the special need child, because he's going to manage a special need child affairs, financial affairs. So he should be sensitive enough, keeping good relationship with other professionals. So these are the qualities a trustee should have. Avoid conflict, no profiting from the trust, and beneficiary care top priority. So much like you as a parent are thinking of your child future, a trustee, when he is managing the trust, he should be also looking at the future of the special need child affairs. So how the corpus should be utilized, how the corpus can sustain longer, where the funds would be required, he should be able to think towards that direction. So there are certain qualities you should look at. Now a trustee can be individual, can be a corporate. When I say about individual, so if somebody who is completely new, so he may be an inexperienced, so we'll have to understand the role first. As far as corporate is concerned, there are companies and who have an experience in managing trust, understand fully the role of a trustee, especially with relation to special needs child affairs. And largely the preferred trustees by the families are the family, friends, relatives. But when you have these preferred trustees, then when you want to appoint them, assess how much they know about the trustee role. So whenever you are identifying trustees, ensure that you look at certain qualities, you may discuss with them, you may help them understand, and then you identify or you appoint them as a future trustee. Now, what is the role of a professional trustee? So I discussed in my last slide about a professional trustee, a corporate entity. A professional trustee role is to check that interests of the beneficiaries are considered, the assets of the trust are protected, and the trust is running correctly. So largely a corporate or professional trustee, he is going to work as a professional managing the trust affairs, ensuring that the beneficiary interest is on the top priority. He is going to manage the asset of the trust, that it are protected for the beneficiaries, and the day-to-day affairs of the trust, that the trust is running correctly. And professional trustees usually charge fee on the basis of holding the position of the trustees. So these are the role of a professional trustee. Now, if you look at these roles, then largely a professional trustee is going to be well acquainted with the trust affairs. So what are the advantage of a professional trustee? As I said, they are usually well acquainted with the trustee duties. A professional trustee assisting on all trustees meeting their obligation, the chances of successful allegations of sham trust are decreased. So when you have a professional trustee, and when a professional trustee is well acquainted with trustee duties, so conducting regular meetings, knowing how the affairs have to be managed, so they can work with other trustees, and generally the concern regarding the trust might be mismanaged. Those chances get reduced when you have a professional trustee along with individuals whom you have identified. And trustees are personally liable to all the beneficiaries of a trust. So when I say this, it comes from the fact that it's a legal responsibility and the trustees have to work for the benefit of the beneficiaries. So, and if it's a legal relationship, they would be personally liable to the benefit of the beneficiary. So that's an advantage of a professional trustee. Now that was about trust structures and about the identifying trustees. Now how the private trust is taxed, what are the taxation? Now the income which a trust derives. Now first of all, a trust does not have an income of its own because it's an arrangement. It's an arrangement between a settler, between the trustee, and for the benefit of the beneficiaries. Now the assets are provided to the trust, the trustees are only managing it, and the assets are for the benefit of the beneficiaries. That's why the trust won't have any taxability as a trust. The taxability will depend on, first of all, it is an assessable upon the trustees in their representative capacity. Now the income of the trust is largely for the beneficiary, and that's why income of the trust is treated as the beneficiary's income. Now either it can be assessed upon the trustees in their representatives because they are representing the beneficiary, or it can assess directly at the beneficiary level. But there are two ways in which the trust income is going to be assessed. One is a specific trust. Now what is a specific trust? When in the trust the income distribution is clearly defined for the beneficiaries, it is known as a specific trust. For example, there are two beneficiaries, and when the trust deed says that 60% of the income should go to one beneficiary, 40% of income should go to second beneficiary, the income is clearly defined. Those trusts are known as specific trusts. Now, income of those trusts are taxed at the rate applicable to each of these beneficiaries and is recovered from representative assessee, which is the trustee. The second is the discretionary trust. Now, discretionary trusts are those trusts where the income is taxed at the maximum marginal rate. Now, what are the discretionary trusts? First of all, discretionary trusts are those trusts where the income distribution is decided by the trustees. So it is not written in the trust deed how much income should be distributed to the beneficiaries, but trustees decide how much income is distributed to each of the beneficiaries. Now, if that is the structure of the trust, the income generated is generally taxed at the maximum marginal rate. But there are some exemptions which have been provided to discretionary trust also. So these are the two ways where the income of trust is going to be taxed. And depending on whether the trust has a business income of its own or it does not have a business income of its own, the income tax of the trust would be decided accordingly. I am not going very deep into the taxation because that itself is a very long subject, but largely this is how the trust income is taxed. Now, when you have only the special needs child as a beneficiary, it will be treated as a specific trust because the 100% of income is for the benefit of the special needs child. So the income of the trust or the income which is generated by the trust is going to be taxed at the beneficiary level. So a special need trust, how it will benefit and how it works. So I'm just summarizing it. The parents create family private trust, either revocable or irrevocable. Now the management and the beneficiary, largely how you can structure it. The parents can become the initial trustees. We call it as a living trust, where parents form the trust today, they become the initial trustees, and they can identify and appoint future trustees. In the trust, the parents can also be the beneficiaries. Those structures can also be created, so the same trust can care for parents also in the old age, managing the corpus. So the trust looks at investment, where the corpus has to be invested, the growth of that corpus. They will look at the tax efficiency. They will look at the sustainability of the corpus. The distribution of income can happen to guardian or the residential care and can be planned more efficiently. The funds cost of child care. Now, funds can be paid as and when required. It can be paid quarterly, half yearly, annually, any lump sum requirement. So you can set up in the trust deed how the funds should be paid. Provide security to assets. Now becomes irrevocable at settlers' incapacity or death. The provision can do that. And once a trust becomes an irrevocable, then it provides security to the assets, and the assets become the trust property. And again, the highly liquid structure which can ensure security of the assets. Monitoring of a trust. So how do you set up monitoring of the trust, or who can monitor of the trust? It can be done when you are appointing the trustees. Now the trustee, as I said, can be anyone. You can have even the representative from the institutions or the residential care as one of the trustees. The parents can be one of the trustees. The professional trustees can be there. So the decision making does not rest with one party. It is going to be a joint decision making, and that's why when you look at monitoring of the trust, it's the structure you create which provides the monitoring of the trust. Funds monitoring, a professional organization when you have in your private trust can assist in funds monitoring. So periodic auditing, hiring professional, can set up stringent review processes. So with these two level of the provisions you create, the monitoring of the trust can happen. And what is our view? Yes, it is the most viable structure when you look at continuity of managing the child affairs, and when you consider the options I have talked about earlier, either leaving asset to the child managed by the legal guardian or leaving asset to the institutions. So when you look at all those options, our view is that the trust is the most viable structure. The layer of security can be set up to ensure flow of funds for expenses. So how the funds flow for the expenses which is going to be managed for the child, the layer of security can be set up there. The income distribution can be kept as flexible as you want, whether monthly, half yearly, annually, any lump sum payment. So the trust structure provides continuity of funding and security to the assets in most efficient manner, because the trust, when you set up, is going to remain till the beneficiary is alive, and it is going to be managed. Now today you can have one trustee, tomorrow you can have another trustee, but you can have a combination of trustees. And as I said earlier, the decision making does not rest with the one, and that's why we feel that you have the most viable structure, the framework where the continuity of managing the child affairs even after your lifetime till the child lifetime can be set up. How to form a trust? So how do you form a trust? Step one, you list down the objectives. What do you want the trust to do? What are the objectives you want from the trust? Do you want only special child affairs to be managed, or do you want your old age to be managed by the trust? So you should list down first the objectives. Consultation and smooth and unhindered succession of assets, protecting interest of family members and ensuring that their financial needs are taken care of. I'm talking about the objectives which you list down. Taking care of unforeseen eventualities like incapacity and untimely demise. How step two, decide the structure of the trust. So once you have listed down the objective, then decide the structure of the trust. You want revocable, you want irrevocable, do you want testamentary trust? What do you want to do? Step three, decide who will be settlers, trustees, beneficiaries. So who is creating the trust? Parents, grandparents. Who is going to be the trustees? You can identify, you can appoint, and who is going to be the beneficiary or beneficiaries. Step four, decide on assets to be transferred to the trust and when. How do you want the asset to be distributed? In your living, or you want it through will? Do you want some of the asset to be distributed to the trust in your lifetime? and rest of the asset come through will. So you can decide how the asset should be transferred to the trust. Translate intention into the trust deed. Once you have decided on all these factors, now create a trust deed. So a deed has to be drafted and register the trust deed to form the trust. Now the registration is not mandatory where only movable assets are involved. You can get it notarized also. But largely, whenever an immovable property will be transferred to the trust deed will have to be get it registered. So you might register the trust deed today. This is how you form a private trust. And once trust deed is registered, the bank account is open, trust is functional, and you start managing the trust. I'm going to go a step further and talk about something which we as a company also promoting it. Now, these are the probable stakeholders of your special child affairs. So there is a legal guardian, individual family member, can be friends, NGO registered with National Trust as allowed by the court. Now these are the provisions which are there. One of the trustees set up in the trust deed. The guardian will take care of the personal affairs. Trustees, individuals, corporate, and the trustee will manage the financial affairs. Support system, you have family members, friends, parents, community who will fulfill the above role when in need. And there are service providers, residential living centers, medical professional, social organization, and financial and legal professionals who ensures the quality of life. Now, when you have all these stakeholders, there is one big challenge which is going to be faced by the families. And the challenge is how you keep them aligned so that the decision making of your child affairs is smooth. For example, if an emergency comes up and the legal guardian has to decide personally, the trustees has to provide the funds, and the service providers would also be party to it for the decision making. Now, if all these stakeholders are not aware of what has happened in the child life in the past, right, when the trust started managing it, the decision making would be very difficult, because a legal guardian before taking a decision would want to know what has happened, why it has happened, and probably they might not be talking to the service providers on a daily basis. So unless and until all these stakeholders are aligned with each other and under one roof, it is very difficult that the decision making for the special needs child affairs would be smooth, because the decision making has to have on multiple levels and for different affairs. That's where we are saying that an ecosystem should be created, an ecosystem which can bring in all the stakeholders under one roof. Now you have created a private trust, you have opted for a residential care, you have appointed a legal guardian. How do you make them aligned with each other on a regular basis, on a periodic basis? And if you appoint somebody to oversee the affairs, how do you ensure he get a periodic review of what's happening with the child affairs? That's where an ecosystem which we are planning to evolve, which we are planning to implement, really works for the benefit of special child. Now, how this ecosystem works? Now, under this ecosystem, trustees of a private trust, especially the professional trustees, they set up contracts with service providers and with which can be a residential living center, or it can be different service providers if the child is living at residential home. So it set up contracts with service providers, build up a periodic review system, and the assessment is provided to the protector or the guardian, whoever is overseeing the affairs. So at any one point of time, the person who is overseeing the affairs or everybody related to the special needs child affairs actually know what's happening with the child management of child affairs. So how is it happening? The periodic review system under this ecosystem will happen. So the medical professional will provide a periodic report, the residential care will provide a periodic report, the trustees will provide a periodic report to the protector if it is appointed in situations, or to the legal guardian, and the decision making would be there. So this kind of an ecosystem will help to ensure that each one of the stakeholders know very well what's happening with the child affairs and how the things are being managed. Okay, so I'll just go through a case study which shows that, first of all, how do you identify the corpus, the funding of the trust, and how do you build this ecosystem? Now, Vicky, 27 years old, is a special need adult. Gaurav wished to estimate the corpus required for his lifetime care. We assume that Vicky life expectancy is going to be near 70 years. Average inflation of 7% is assumed in the expenses, assuming a growth of 8% on the corpus. So this is a situation of a family, and Gaurav wants to identify what is the corpus he will require for Vicky expenses for lifetime. When he is not there, that is the amount of money we want to leave, which will be funded for the trust. Now, this is a Vicky expenses. Now, this is an expense chart which we have created, identifying your special child expenses separately. Living expenses, day-to-day care, personal need, cost for schooling. So the total monthly expense for Gaurav comes 58,000. Yearly expense of 6.96 lakh is an yearly expense. Now, when you try to identify what is the corpus required today, which can ensure that these expenses are being generated. So we are planning a 43 years lifetime of Vicky and inflation and expected growth. So 2.47 CR is the corpus which is estimated by Gaurav. Now, what does it mean? This means that Gaurav needs a 2.47 CR corpus today, that if something happens to the Gaurav, then this corpus is available, which will be funded to the trust, and the trust will, with this corpus, will manage Vicky expenses for lifetime. The earlier corpus was for Gaurav lifetime. Now, when there is a trust, then there are some expenses by the trust also. So if I assume that yearly cost of trust management comes to 90,000, then the actual corpus would be required as 2.79 CR. So it's always a bit higher amount than what's the money you require for the special child care. Now, why this is important? This is important because you have formed the trust, but you need to estimate what is the money which should be funded to the trust. After your lifetime, that money has to be funded to the trust, because that money is the only corpus available which will manage your special child affairs. And if that money is not adequate, then how the trust is going to manage the child affairs? There would be a time if it is, so suppose Gaurav only leaves 1.5 CR to the trust, then a time will come when this corpus will be utilized completely, and there still would be a lifetime for the child, for Vicky. And that's where this estimation of funding to the trust is most essential. Now I spoke about ecosystem, how this ecosystem is built. So let's say Gaurav has a younger brother whom he has appointed as a legal guardian in his will. Gaurav wished to form the trust to safeguard the asset. Now, Vicky may reside in a residential center post Gaurav lifetime. This is how the ecosystem gets built. So, Vicky Family Trust, Gaurav forms the Vicky Family Trust. Now, Gaurav and spouse are the initial trustees. They appoint future successor trustees. They set up terms and conditions of the trust. They appoint the legal guardian also, who will manage the special need care post Gaurav lifetime. Gaurav appoints professional trustees in the trust, who is going to manage day-to-day affairs, and the trustees are going to set up contracts with service providers to set up a periodic review system under this ecosystem. Funding of the trust is decided through investment which Gaurav has built. He bought a life insurance also, and through gifting. Now, within lifetime or through will, he has planned to funding. So this structure is created. Now the trust is setting up contract with service providers for receiving special need care services. The providers, so service providers has to provide a periodic review report, and maybe on a digital system setup, they have to upload it, which is accessible by the legal guardian, who continue to receive information from the trust on managed assets. That's where you, through this ecosystem, you ensure that all the stakeholders are aligned with each other. They are under one roof. It shouldn't happen that trust is managing the financial affairs, legal guardian is managing the personal affairs, and nobody is aware of what's happening with the child affairs. I'm taking up another case study to help you understand another ecosystem which is built. Varun, 42 years old, is a special need adult. Varun father Ravi is 75 years old. Wish to plan for Varun. Varun mother died 10 years ago, and immediate family members available is younger brother who is an NRI. The brother's son is also NRI, but Ravi wished to involve him to oversee Varun care. It's difficult for NRIs to come in as a trustee under a Indian trust, but they can appoint it as a in some other role. And Ravi wished to have Varun stay in their existing residential home. So they would be service providers who will provide all the services. Varun will stay in the existing residential home. Brother Ravi is going to oversee Varun care. And because he's an NRI, he cannot come directly to the trust. Neither he can be appointed as a legal guardian. So how do we involve him? So this is how a structure is created. Varun Family Trust is formed. Ravi, as a settler and as a guardian, he appoints the future guardian and caregiver. Somebody as a resident Indian will become the next guardian. He set up terms of the trust, appoint initial and future trustees. Now, brother's son, who is an NRI, he wanted to bring him up overseeing the affairs. He become a protector in the trust. So he is not a trustee. He is not into function work on day-to-day affairs, but he come in as a protector. So he would be there in decision making. Professional trustees are appointed managing day-to-day affairs. Again, trustees set up contract with service providers. The service providers would be professionals, medical professionals, and maybe one service provider who can provide holistic services. And through this contract, a periodic monitoring process with all the stakeholders is set up. Again, funding of the trust, investment, life insurance within lifetime or through will. So the family trust will provide protector who is the brother's son. They will discuss with the trustees, protector on financial, but is always involved in the important decisions. And the trust is going to provide the periodic report, plus he can also access the review system which is being set up. So he can oversee the affairs, and with this all the stakeholders would be well aware of, as I said earlier, that they would be aligned with each other role, and that's where the decision making would be smooth. Otherwise there will be a situation where after for so many years a guardian would not know what's happening in the financial management, though even the guardian is also a family member, but he's not involved in the trustees. Similarly, the trust would not know what situation is arise. Suppose, as I said earlier, if a medical situation arises, the trust won't know why this situation have arisen. They might have to look at the complete background and see how this situation has reached. So the decision making becomes much smoother, and the care we are also looking at through this ecosystem, the care would be more efficient. So myth and concern about estate planning. Now these are certain myths which we see at things are under control as of now. My wife will take care of all the needs of the child after me. Things are pretty different if you do not have a will. My other children, brothers, sisters will take care of this child after me. Again, it has challenges. Will writing and estate planning is complex, complicated, and expensive. No, can't find the right people to trust my child and assets for the benefit of my child. We have discussed about a structure where you don't have to find somebody from the family. You can find people outside the family. I still have time. We'll do estate planning during my retired life. We are looking at a provision. We are discussing a provision, what happens after me. There is no timeline for that. Not sure about what the ecosystem would look like after me. That's what we have discussed. That's what I have discussed in the end, an ecosystem. And you as a family, we as a family need this ecosystem so that whoever are the stakeholders, they are aligned with each other. And if I write my will, something will happen to me. These are the certain myths we have heard, when we talk about families, when we discuss with them about estate planning. What we do as an organization, Special Need Estate Planners Private Limited, we provide estate planning solutions. SNEP ecosystem is a solution we are looking at. Though we will and trust, we do the drafting, we can help you in set up the trust, but what happens after that? The concern is always that how the trustee will manage, how the trust will sync with the if the residential care, how they will sync with the residential care. Won't there be issues in if some demand come from the residential care to the trust, how the legal guardian will play a role here? So that's what ecosystem I have spoken about. Will and trust. So we do drafting of these documents and help in setting up the structure. We also have launched with this company the trusteeship services exclusively for special need trust, which means we are acting as professional trustees in special need trust. And also we have trust advisory services, wherein you have already a trust, you have trustees, now they need a hand holding, they need someone who can manage the trust affairs, not as a trustee. So that's where we have the trust advisory services. Yes, thank you. I'm done with my presentation and ready to take up questions.
Thank you, Jitendra ji. We have got few questions. Shall I share the screen with the questions?
You can share the screen or you can read through. I can answer it, no problem.
Okay, no problem. So the first question is from Mr. Ravindra Gokhel, and he asked that there are private trust managers that in Maharashtra, trustee and executors company, they charge 2.5% for the management. With the interest rates coming down to just 6%, this becomes too much. Any solution for this?
See, a professional trustee will charge its fee. Okay, and now the fee can be a fixed fee or it can be a percentage of the corpus which is being managed. Now it's not necessary that the corpus has to be invested only in the an asset which is generating an interest income, that is a fixed deposit. Now totally depends on what you have provided in the trust deed. If you have provided for that the trust asset can be invested into savings scheme, can be invested into mutual funds, can be invested into other assets, it shouldn't be invested into stock, then the trustees can invest into other instruments also. But as far as and see, when a professional trustee is running the trust, he has to look at the long-term sustainability of the corpus. So he might not take an investment decision himself, he might hire an investment professional to take the decision. But as far as fee goes, the fee, as I said, is the two types of fee structures available: a fixed fee and a percentage of the assets, which is there. Now, those are the professional fee for managing the complete affairs, not only for managing the investment, but managing the complete affairs of the trust.
Okay, shall I go for the next question?
Yeah.
The next question from Mr. Sagarnil Sengupta, and he asked that who would oversee the decisions taken by the professional trustee when parents are not there?
See, in any trust, you need two trustees. Now, the professional trustee can be one trustee. You would appoint somebody as a second trustee, and as I have shown in the case studies, that you can create a structure where you can invite multiple people in different roles. So, as a protector also, or apart from professional trustees, you can identify somebody else, not has to be from immediate family member, coming in as a trustee. So when there are multiple trustees, then decision making is not to be done by one person. The professional trustee won't be the one who's going to make all the decisions. They will be making all the decisions in alignment with other trustees. They will be discussing with other trustees, and it has to be a joint decision making. You will provide in the trust deed that how decision making should be done. It should be a voting, the majority, so that decision making, once written in the trust deed, the decision making will happen accordingly. And largely when you have more than two trustees, then as I said, the decision making is done by all the trustees in discussion with each other, and there is a process which you have laid down in the trust deed for the decision making. So the professional trustee is not the only one who's going to decide.
Okay. And the next question is from Mr. Ashok Shah, and he asked that trust created for special child, will that trust eligible for tax concession for the special need child?
So the tax concessions are only under section 80D D and 80U which are available. The trust is not eligible for that. The trust is treated as an association of persons, though the taxability as it at beneficiary level, but you do not get those tax concessions in the private trust.
Okay, as this is not a charitable trust, that's why it is not. It will not get that tax benefit, right?
No, it is not a charitable trust. If we are comparing with charitable trust, no benefit like charitable trust. Charitable trust is a completely different entity we are discussing.
Correct. That means this type of trust will not get the tax benefits. Okay.
Yes, the tax benefit is not available. If you look at the tax benefit which are available, it is specifically written for individuals and HUF. Right? The trust is not an individual entity, neither it's an HUF. So that's why those tax benefits won't be available.
Yes, okay. And Mr. Shah asked one more question, which is, can you explain what ecosystem involves? Is it future financial planning?
See, financial planning is a separate element. Financial planning is basically identifying the requirements of your special child. Now, when I talk about funding of the trust, the funding of the trust estimation happens in the financial planning. So the financial planning is that element, and you will have to do financial planning to identify how the trust should be funded and with what amount it should be funded, because you want to know, you will have to estimate the special child financial requirement to ensure that the funding is adequate enough. So financial planning is a separate exercise you will have to do. It is a separate you will have to go for financial planning to identify your financial requirements. With respect to the ecosystem, now the ecosystem is about aligning all the stakeholders with each other. Now when a trust is setting up these contract with service providers, with other stakeholders, it is setting up a process, a review process to ensure that the special needs child care is being assessed on a periodic basis. So that is the benefit of an ecosystem. Now within this ecosystem, the financial planning can be one of the element one of the element for identifying the funding to the trust.
Okay, here it comes next question from Pratibha Bhatnagar, and it is, what happened if after us our special need child dies? Will government can undertake all the properties of trust or what?
No, what happens is, because it's a succession planning. Now, in the trust deed or in the will, you can provide that how these assets will be distributed if the child is not there tomorrow, and if the assets is dissolved, if the trust is dissolved, then you are going to provide for in the will or in the trust deed itself, and accordingly the trust assets will be distributed. So you have to make a provision for that.
Okay, that means while creating the trust, that has to be written.
Yes,
whatever the provision. Okay.
While creating a trust, in the trust deed or in the will.
Okay, or in the will, I have to mention it. Then
Yes.
only it will be done. Okay, okay.
Yes.
One more question she asked, that is, please suggest which is the better and smooth step, trust or legal guardianship on financial matters.
Sorry, come again. What is the question?
Yes, she asked, the second question is, please suggest which is the better and smooth step, trust or legal guardianship on the financial matters.
See, legal guardian can manage all the affairs, right? It can manage the financial affairs and personal affairs also. Now the problem is that when you have a legal guardian, see, the biggest issue is when you appoint a legal guardian. Now he is not from the parent. He has to make adjustment in his own life, and it's a huge responsibility you are giving him when you are giving him both the financial and the personal affairs. Now if the legacy is bigger, now one, he is going to adjust his life because he has to manage the personal affairs. Plus, the legal guardian will have to be knowledgeable enough to manage the financials, and he will have to decide like the way you decide. The challenge is that the legal guardian might not be able to take up that responsibility. He might not be devote so much time on managing the affairs. Plus, he or she might not be capable enough to manage the financials, both the affairs. As a parent, because the child has grown with you, you know very well each and everything. You are managing the personal affairs, you are managing the financial affairs. The legal guardian might not be that aware. So it's a challenge giving legal guardian both the responsibilities. That's where you separate the financial responsibility to the trust and let the trust manage it, and let the legal guardian decide on the personal affairs. So both work with each other, but to our view, separating both these roles would be more beneficial.
Okay. So one more question is from Mrs. Choitali Gami, and it is, can a OCI card holder become legal guardian under NT Act?
No, the legal guardian has to be within, as per my knowledge, the legal guardian has to be within Indian court jurisdiction. Now, if its a status is resident Indian, he can become the legal guardian. But this is something I'll leave it to the legal professionals to answer it. I can come back to this question once I have discussed with my legal team. But generally, somebody outside the Indian court jurisdiction cannot be a legal guardian.
Okay. So another question is from Mr. Atanu Sen. If professional is not working as per the common decision or working at their will, then what action a protector can take?
So it depends on what powers you have given. If you have powers given to the protector to remove the trustees, the removal of trustees can happen. So when you are writing the trust deed, when you are appointing somebody as a protector, you also write down his power and the responsibilities. You write down his power, what powers you are giving to the protector on decision making, whether he or she can remove the trustees or not, or he can only challenge it. So based on what powers you have given, the decision can be taken. So if you have given powers to remove the trustees can be removed.
Okay, great. So no more questions till now. So I have one question.
Yeah.
Probably you address it, I don't know. I am not able to follow 100% because of the monitoring and everything. So my question is, if my son is staying in a residential care system which is running by an NGO, and I am creating a private trust for the future management of my child, can that residential care organization be a trustee of the private trust?
See, the complete organization is difficult. You can have a representative, coming in as a trustee in your private trust. Yes, you can have a representative from that organization as a trustee. But appointing an NGO as a trustee or a charitable trust as a trustee. So there are certain rules and regulations. Just to give you an example, suppose if you appoint a charitable, a representative or a trustee of a charitable trust as a trustee in a private trust. So the trustee might have to take an approval from a charitable commissioner. Okay. So there are difficulties in that, but yes, a representative from your residential care institution can become a trustee in your private trust. That might be an option, but it's completely optional. It completely depends on the whether the parents want it or not.
That's why I wanted to know that if I want to get a trustee from that residential care organization, but as you said, if I mention that representative of that organization, is there any scope to mention without name that residential care without name trustee can be appointed in the deed? That's what I want to know.
It's a very going deep into the legal things. To my knowledge, yes, it can happen. Okay, to my knowledge, it can happen, but without giving a name would in the trust deed would be difficult, because then how do you mention it? You will have to give a name that a representative from so and so institution.
No, that's why I'm telling. I can mention the organization, but the who will be there, that will be nominated by that organization, right? Is there any scope to mention like that? That I want a representative from that so and so organization will be the trust.
Private trust, as I said, the terms are not standard, so you can mention that, and the organization will decide that who is their representative who can be come as a trustee in your private trust.
Okay, one more question I got from Mr. Arnab Day, and he asked that is there any limit in terms of the maximum number of person who can be the trustee?
No, there is no limit, but ideally in a private trust, especially for affairs, unless and until the trust has got a very, very big legacy, I think 2 to 5 trust, any number between that should be good enough. There is no maximum limit, as far as the trustees is concerned. But between that number, the trustees within those, between 2 to 5 trustees is good enough.
Okay. So one more question in my mind, that if I am attaching that residential care organization who is taking care of my child in the private trust, is there any clash of interest, because they are taking care of my child and they are also in the trust? Is there any legality issue will be there?
No, legality issue might not be there, but yes, one challenge which can happen, which probably the concern which you is that the residential center would know that how much funds are lying in the trust and how the trust is being managed. Okay, so one challenge is there, where the parents can or the parents have a concern that the institution would come to know about the details of your private trust, because one of the representatives is a trustee. So if he's a trustee, he's going to be party to the decision making. He would be knowing about the trust financial. So now the concern can be then, can he demand funds additional to what he is already demanding for the care of your special needs child. So that is a challenge which I think is there, but I think that's why I said, when you have this ecosystem, so when you have financial planners, when you have legal professionals, when you have other stakeholders, everybody is aligned with each other, then these kind of challenges can be addressed.
Okay.
Because a residential care cannot ask anything additional which he is not doing for other children. He cannot ask only from your only from one parent, and for other parents it's the earlier expenses. And just take an example of expenses. Residential care increase expenses. If they increase expenses, they will have to increase unless and until there is a reasonable justification that why expenses only for you has been increased. But as I said, the decision making is not there alone. And when you have professionals attached to the trust, when you have other people attached, other stakeholders attached to this ecosystem, then the identification becomes easy, that whether any demand which is raised by anyone on the financial, is it reasonable enough.
Okay. I'm not seeing any more questions. Mr. Shah asked the one question which is I already asked. Can another charitable trust can be trustee?
It's going to be a challenge, because I do not have a legal answer to it, but maybe we did address one of the situations where the view was that if a trustee of a charitable trust has to become a trustee of a private trust, might have to take a permission from a charitable commissioner, because he or she is already a trustee. So what is the objective being achieved to becoming a trustee in another trust? So you might face challenges. It's better to avoid.
Okay, so better to avoid the complication. It is
Yes.
we can keep as the representative from the trust, not the entire trust in the trustee, right?
Not the trustee, maybe representatives, might be, can be there in your private trust, okay, but not the organization. Organization, so it's very difficult. And even the trustee of a charitable trust, if he or she is a trustee of a charitable trust, it's going to be a bigger challenge. Rather than to face that challenge, it's better to, keep it things as simple as you can.
Okay. So one more question, Mr. Solanki. I am thinking about the situation if I have only child and no other variation is there, and once I am not there and my child also not there, and if I am not mentioned anything about properties, what will happen to the properties, movable or immovable? In that case, what will happen to that entire corpus or the property?
Okay. See, if you do not have a will written, then the distribution of asset will happen as per the succession law. If you are a Hindu, so under Hindu Succession Act, there is a process defined for how your assets are going to be distributed to your legal heirs. Now, for Hindus, the Hindu Succession Act says there is a list of class 1, class 2 legal heirs. So all the assets get distributed, to the legal heirs available as per the list which is there under the Succession Act. Now the challenge is that if you have a will, the will gets executed and the assets are distributed to the legal heirs. Now, if you do not have a will, then and suppose the only child is there, then yes, all the assets will be owned by the child, but claiming those assets would be a process in itself, because if it is a will, the execution of the through execution of the will, the assets are claimed in the name of the child. But if the will is not there, then you will have to go through the succession law rule, the succession rules. The succession certificate has to be availed. Then you will have to go with each institution and claim those assets. So the process gets longer. So for the legal guardian, this process is going to get longer. It might be sometime costly because you will have to appoint a legal professional to claim the assets through this process. So better to have always a will. Whatever situation you are, it's better that you should write down a will. A will should be available.
Okay, thank you. One more question I am seeing. It is from Mr. Asuksa. With professional trustees, what are the expenses expected, like trustees fee, financial planner fee, any other, and how much approximately?
Okay. So see, again, the fees varies. A financial professional can charge a fee differently. Okay, it can be a mix of fixed fee plus percentage based on assets size. The professional trustees fees are also, it can be a fixed fee or percentage of the assets, based on both, totally depending on what is the fee. Generally depends on, if it's a fixed fee, it will depend on the scope of work involved. What are the number of transactions, the decision making, amount of meetings they have to do. It is going to be the scope of work involved. Just to give you an example, so like our company, we start with the fee of ₹1 lakh annually in a fixed fee, and based on what is the scope of work involved, we quote you the actual fee. And this is the starting fee I'm talking about, and we have started with a fixed fee, and the percentage of fee can come in if there are large the amount of assets involved. So completely depend on what is the scope of work involved for the professional trustees. You won't find a fixed structure among all the professional trustees. All may have a different fee levels, but generally either it will be a fixed or it will be a percentage of assets. We have started with a fixed fee structure for both, for either trusteeship plus also the trust advisory services also, and the actual fee we quote once there is a scope of work involved. Because we have incorporated recently, So we have started on this fee structure. More, it's like one-to-one discussion, and that's where the fee structures are decided. I
Okay,
think some
so
parents have raised hands. Some parents have raised hands. I saw.
no, right now no one is raising hands. I cannot see anybody. Maybe previously they raised. If anybody having question, you can raise a hand or type the question in the chat box. We can address it. Otherwise, we will going forward to conclude. Do you have any questions? Anybody? Someone raised the question. Mr. Sushanto Saha.
Yeah.
Okay, I unmuted you. You can ask the question directly. মিস্টার সুশান্ত সাহা, আপনাকে আনমিউট করা হয়েছে, আপনি অ্যাকসেপ্ট করে কথা বলুন।
Good evening, Mr. Solanki. My point is this trustee. Is there any reporting structure? Whom do this trust or trustee report to?
Okay, so reporting of the trustees. Largely, when you create a private trust, so there is no reporting structure in the sense, there is no reporting. But yes, you as a settler, you can create that structure in the private trust. So the role of protector I have mentioned. So you can appoint somebody as a protector, and the trustees can be seen reporting to the protector on a periodic basis. So you can set up the structure largely, but when you have a private trust with this framework, the trustees are not reporting to any authority or anyone else like in a charitable trust. No, there is no as such authority. But yes, in a private trust, you can create that structure. So you can have somebody, the trustees can report to that person on a periodic basis. So you can set up that structure.
Is there any government
There is no
control?
reporting authority.
Is there any government control on this trust or some sort of overseeing?
No, government control is not there. Government is not taking any kind of reports, from the private trust. The reporting will only come when it is challenged in the court. Okay, but yes, government does not have any authority on the reporting of the private trust.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I think there is no more question. So I will hand over to Somenda. Somenda, are you there?
Yes, I am there. I asked you to hand over the mic to Madam Ayana Kundu. Thank you so much, Mr. Solanki. I am just handing over to Madam Ayana Kundu, the advisor of Parivar Bengal and technical advisor of Parivar National Confederation of Parents Organization, to extend the vote of thanks. Madam Ayana Kundu, please.
Yeah. Mr. Jitendra Solanki, thank you very, very much. It was an excellent presentation, really. Your reputation actually preceded you, and we have not been disappointed. You have concretized into action, points as to how we can go about the family trust, and in an excellent way. I mean, you took us through it, in a very systematic manner. A very big thank you for this. I'm sure, the very fact that there were so many questions raised, the interest of parents, you have been able to, meet the needs and address the parents in a very effective way, because otherwise you wouldn't have been asked so many questions. And the very good thing is that it has got us all thinking. And for that, I need to really thank each and every participant, especially my fellow parents who, like me, always said, what after us? But I think now that question, what, is to be replaced by the action, how. How do we go about it? And this is something, a very valid and a very important way is the family trust. So I hope that we will all, go back home today with us, a thing that we will start the process of a family trust. Let us not go by what you had very rightly said, Mr. Solanki, that we feel that maybe it doesn't, concern us right now, and maybe the other partner will take care, etc. It made me smile because yes, these thoughts have come into all our minds, and we procrastinate. So to give you due respect, I think we should all go home today with this strong, determination to start the process. And I think in the process, we might be disturbing you quite a bit to take your advice, if we may do so. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And I am always open to answer any questions. We have formed this organization only to assist special children families. We are there in whatever way we can. I have been working as a financial planner also, but I always felt that unless and until this solution is provided, the planning will always remain incomplete. And that's why my objective was to come out with a company which can work on end-to-end solution, for the companies. And I'm working towards it. So any questions, any support which is required, we are there and we'll be more than happy to answer.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, thank you, everyone. And with this, we are ending the meeting, and we have the recording in YouTube. If you want to go through, later on you can go through also. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Mr. Solanki. I was disturbing you time and again. Thank you so much.
No problem. As I said, that we have formed this organization only to help families, and this is a need, this is a gap which we want to fulfill, because this is the need of the hour, and this is not available in India as of now. We might be the first one, and the private limited company, the name also you see it, it's a special need estate planners private limited. So the company works exclusively for the families only.
Thank you. How did you get interested?
Okay, so my one is there are some family members, immediate family members who have a special child. Plus, my wife is a disability expert. She has been working with families for last 20 years. So when I started my practice as a financial planner, and I have already by that time met so many families, and I realized that there is nothing available to them. No advisory, no scope of advisory from anywhere else. And immediately I decided, I had a resource which can provide all the information. Now that is what you want, and plus an understanding of the family requirements. I started a specialized practice, but even then the reaching to the families was a big question, because for me it's going to take years, and that's where the concept of book came in. So I wrote a complete book, helping families to read, understand, and then come back to me, and then we can start the journey. And again, in the last epidemic, this question of what after us came in a very big way. Lot many questions came to me. I thought of how I can provide this end services, because this is the end, this is the care. That's where and so I worked with good legal professional. There are good team, and my wife is also there. So that's where we decided that let us form this company, an estate planning firm, which is going to provide the services completely, for special children families, helping them private trust, providing them trusted services, because we understand them. We understand their requirement. Any other company which will come might not understand their requirement. So the gap is not going to be filled. That's where, along with financial planning, I decided that let me have an estate planning firm. So with both these services, I'm trying to, help families in the complete, and complete their care for special needs child.
One thing, Mr. Solanki, if you can send an e-book to us, then it will be beneficiary for our parents in our organization. Okay.
Yes, sir. I'm creating an ebook. I'll be surely sending an ebook. I do have some ebooks from financial planning side, but on estate planning also, I'm creating some ebook, and I'll be very soon sharing it. I will also be sharing a proposal from my firm to the families of Parivar, with some scope on the services we offer, and will be able to assist families.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you all. Thank you,
Good night.
Solanki ji. Good night.
Good night.